it's Alexis. I'm back with another video. Of course, John is not here again, like I explained in my last video. We are going to be filming separate videos. No, we are not having any kind of relationship problems. There's nothing going on there. We're perfectly fine. We just agreed that we wanted to try a bunch of different videos, and since it is spring break, we have the opportunity to do that. But basically, today's video is going to be a story time of how I realized that there was somebody living underneath my house. So the suspicion that there was somebody underneath the house started 3 years ago when I was in 7th grade. And it would be like little things, like I would hear banging underneath my floor, and it was always on my end of the house. Like, it was never on my mom's end. But there was a time where my mom heard people talking, and she thought like I was on the phone with somebody, or I was like, I don't know, she thought that it was me talking. And so she came into my room and she was like, Alexis, go to bed. Like, why are you talking to people on the phone? And I was just like, I'm not, like, I'm in bed. Like, I'm not talking to anybody. And she was like, oh, I heard voices. Are you sure you weren't talking to anybody? And I was like, yes, like, I'm in bed. And like, my brother was asleep already. Because he has a strict bedtime. He does not like staying up past 8 o'clock. So he was already asleep, and so it was just me and my mom. And she was like, she just kept asking, am I sure that I wasn't talking to somebody? And I was like, yes, I'm sure, like, I haven't talked to anybody. And so it was weird, and that would continue, and eventually the bangs were getting louder and louder, and they were starting to spread throughout the house. So like, we would be in the kitchen and we would hear somebody banging underneath the house, and it was so weird. And so we all just assumed it was an animal. Nobody made a big deal about it. And then it stopped for a little bit. It stopped for like a year, maybe not even a year. It was like less than a year. Like, all the noises stopped. We didn't have any problems. And then another time I heard a deep man's voice yelling. I never heard a woman's voice. Say hi to the camera. She hates being held. But it was always a deep man's voice, and that's, I guess, what kind of scared me the most. Was like, okay, if there's a grown man underneath our house, then, like, that's not good. It was just continuous noises and bangs and voices, and we would notice that there was like a tearing on the siding of our house. Like, how you get underneath our house, there was like a tear right there, and it had been like pulled out so that somebody or something could get inside. And so one day I like looked in, and there was like crushed up cans and the fast food paper bag thingies. Like, I could distinctly see a McDonald's one. I distinctly saw a Jack in the Box one. Like, it was obvious somebody had eaten down there. Somebody had been down there, because there was that trash. And my family, like, we don't go out and get fast food a lot. Like, we get it once in a blue moon, like if we're on a road trip and we don't want to stop at a restaurant. That's literally the only time we get fast food. So we all knew that, like, it wasn't our food, but we continued to ignore it. And then a little while later, there was phone ringing. Like, I would occasionally hear a phone vibrating, and clearly I had my phone in my hand, so I knew it wasn't my phone. And my mom wouldn't be home, so it would just be me and my little brother. And at the time that this first occurred, my brother did not have a phone. So my phone was the only phone in the house, and it wasn't my phone vibrating. And so we would hear it, and it would always be coming from underneath the house. Like, it was never in a room. It wasn't like, oh, it's coming from that room, or oh, it's coming from over there. It was like, no, like it was always underneath. And so that kind of freaked us out. And then another time, my brother and I were coming home from having dinner with our dad, and as we walked into the house, we could hear from underneath the house that somebody was calling someone. And it wasn't like a ring like you're getting a call, it was like a ring like you're calling somebody else and you're waiting for them to answer. And we heard that, and we both checked our phones, and neither one of our phones were ringing. And this was like a year after I had first started hearing the vibrations. So neither one of our phones were ringing. We were not calling anybody. Neither one of us had accidentally dialed somebody, and my mom was at home, so again, it was just me and my brother there, and we both heard it. Like, we stood there in silence, and it was ringing for like a solid 20 to 30 seconds around there, and then it just stopped. And so we were both just like, what the heck? Like, it wasn't even like a faint sound, like it was loud, and we could hear it. Like, it was very obvious that that's what it was. It wasn't like, oh, maybe it's the humming of a truck, or, you know, maybe it's a TV, because one, the TV was off, and two, it was just so loud, it was obvious what it was. It wasn't any like guessing or anything. And my brother had actually heard it before me, and he was like, are you calling someone? And I told him, I was like, no, I'm not calling anyone. What are you talking about? And he was like, well, don't you hear that ringing? And so we both stood there quiet, and that's when we heard it. And then there was another time in the morning, I was getting dressed, and there was a constant ringing, and it wasn't my phone. It wasn't my brother's phone, and I just kept hearing the ringing noise, and I was like, whose phone is it? And it was just me and my brother at the house again. And so we were both just like, what the heck? And it continued, and then there would constantly be a noise. When the noises had started coming back, there was a noise of like wood cutting. It not like a mechanical saw cutting wood, but like a manual saw, and somebody just there like sawing wood. It made that kind of noise, and it was weird. And my cat would hear the noise too, and she would like run like to where she heard it underneath the floor, and she would just like stare at the floor and start hitting it. Or sometimes she would hear it from the walls, and she would like stare at the wall and start hitting it, and it would always be like at the bottom of the wall, like where the floor meets the wall. It would always be like around that like crease where she would hear it, or it would be like in the middle of my floor and she would hear it. There are a couple times where she's heard it in the living room and the kitchen, but like we would all start hearing like a noise like somebody was cutting wood, and then immediately our cat would like run right to it and like start hitting the floor and everything with her paws. And then like we started noticing that there was like a dip in our kitchen floor, and we would like walk past it, and like, because we have like the covering, and then underneath there's wood underneath, so you would walk on the covering, and the covering would like dip down, and we thought that like, oh, maybe the wood underneath is decaying and we need to replace it and everything. And then eventually one day my brother walked over and he fell right through it. And so there was like this big old hole in our kitchen floor. And when my brother had finally like cut up the covering and looked at the flooring underneath, you could tell that somebody had like cut the flooring and had like started pulling it. Like it was curved downwards, like somebody was like pulling on it from underneath, and there was like cuts on the sides, and you could tell that like it wasn't like that before, because it was really janky cuts. They were not like straight lines, it was all janky, and you could tell somebody had been pulling on it. And so that was like really weird. So my brother patched that up, and the moment he had patched that up, or not that very moment, but like the next day, we heard more wood cutting noises in the kitchen. And this morning I had actually heard wood cutting on my floor. And so there was just like little things like that. And then a couple months ago, back I think in July, it was either June or July, we extended my porch. So the tear on the side of the house on how you get underneath the house, we covered that up when we extended the porch. And so there was no opening to get under the house afterwards, but less than a month later, there was a new tearing, and it was even bigger, and there was a tearing, and when you go underneath and you look inside, it led from the front of our house to the back of our house. There was one going straight back, and then there was one like coming from the front to the side over here on the side of my house. I mean, not on the side of my house, on the side of my room. There was a tearing right there where you could get out. And there was more trash. There was more fast food things. Dogs used to go underneath there and eat like leftover food that was underneath the house. So all these things have been like going on for 3 years, and multiple times like I've heard a man yelling. Like I think it was a year and a half ago, I heard a man yell, just shut up. And it came from underneath. Like, it's very obvious that these things are coming from underneath the house, and it's not just me hearing them, it's like everybody hearing them. There were a couple times where my sister had spent the night and she had been convinced that the house was haunted because she would hear noises too. And it's all just creepy, and we don't know who it is. We don't know like if it is a person, if it's a dog, or I don't know. We don't know, but we're pretty sure that it's a person just because of the fact that there's fast food underneath there, because we've heard a man's voice, like because there's the sound of wood cutting, and the fact that there was a hole in our kitchen floor. We're all very convinced that it's a man, on top of like the phone ringing and everything. But it's all just really creepy. I don't even know how to explain it, because like we haven't caught anybody, but we're like 100% sure. We're not 100, we're like 95% sure that there's somebody, maybe not necessarily living under there, but definitely going underneath our house, because there is food under there, because there is tearings and holes and sounds of wood cutting, the phone ringing. And me and my brother are home a lot. Like, we're almost always home. And we have a security alarm, so it's like if somebody were to break in, all the alarms would go off. So it's not like we're in a lot of danger knowing that there's somebody going underneath our house, because if they were to try to break into the house, the alarms would go off and the cops would be contacted immediately. But it's just creepy knowing that they can hear anything we say. They can hear things in the vents, you know, because the vents lead to underneath the house. They can hear through the vents. They can hear us underneath, and it's like creepy the most for me, because my room is like just outside my room is where the tearing is. Like, where my phone is on the other side of this window is where the tearing is to go underneath the house, and the other one is literally right here. And then the other one is in my brother's room, like on the other side of his window. But it's all just so creepy, and it's always on our side of the house. Like, there's been a couple of occurrences in the living room and in the kitchen, but it's mostly been in me and my brother's house. I mean, not our houses, our rooms, where we've heard things. And it's so weird. There was another time where there was like a major, I don't even know if this is related to whoever is going underneath our house, but there was another time when my brother was staying with us for a couple months, and my closet door started shaking, and I was asleep, and I woke up to my closet door shaking like crazy. And then there was people talking, and my brother's wife heard the exact same thing. She heard the door shaking, and then she heard voices. And so it wasn't just me, and it was all just creepy, and this whole thing is creepy. I'm like getting goosebumps thinking about it, but I just think it's so weird that there is somebody underneath the house. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying we're in danger or anything. I highly doubt that, like, whoever's going underneath the house is gonna attack us or anything, but I do think it's very odd and very creepy that there is somebody underneath our house. So that was just a quick little story time of like how we figured out that there was somebody living underneath our house. Like I said, we still haven't figured out exactly who it is, but we have figured out that there definitely is somebody going underneath our house, maybe just sleeping there at night and then leaving throughout the day, because we've only checked throughout the day and we've seen like evidence of somebody being underneath there, but we haven't necessarily seen somebody specifically underneath there. So my conclusion is that they sleep underneath there and then they leave throughout the day. But I don't know. I'm just hoping it all gets resolved and everything is fine and they stay out of underneath our house and just let us sleep peacefully, because it is very creepy. And yeah. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I know it was kind of anticlimactic. Nothing too dramatic happened or has happened yet. And I hope it stays that way. I could have definitely made this more dramatic, but I didn't want to over exaggerate it for you guys. I didn't want to make it seem like a bigger thing than it actually is. I didn't want to lie to you guys, but yeah, that is just what's been happening, and hopefully it all gets resolved soon and everything's fine. But until then, it all remains a mystery. I will definitely update you guys if we find out who it is and, you know, why they've been underneath there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, turn on post notifications so that you get notified every time we post. We will be posting tomorrow and Saturday as well, so stay tuned and we will see you guys next time.